All right, hey guys, in this video, I'm gonna cover the top 4 land investing mistakes that we see newbie land investors making. Look, we've worked with over 100 new and scaling land investors over the last couple years, and we see the same mistakes happen time and time again. So in this video, I'm gonna unpack the top 4 mistakes that I see to help you grow your land business quicker. Okay, mistake number 1, and really this is the biggest one we're gonna camp on for a minute, is that land investors oftentimes don't know the metric that they need to be calculating in order to know if a deal is good or bad. And that metric is return. Another way you can say it is yield, IRR, there's a few different terms you can use. But really what we're looking for is if we're going to invest $1,000, how much money are we going to return on that every single year through our investment? So when a lot of new investors go to calculate what the return is going to be on their property, generally what they do is they look at the value of the property, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, but they look at the value of the property and they look at what they paid for it, and they simply divide the two and calculate how much return they're making. And if you followed me or any other land investing videos, you know that in general you want to make about a 300% return on a property. Now, that's not all in final, but in general that's a good metric you should be looking for. But what many people fail to mention and fail to realize is that there are a ton of other costs that go into calculating your return. Anytime you buy a property, you need to account for photos. You need to account for holding time and holding cost, taxes, closing fees. There's a ton of different things that you have to account for when you're calculating your return. So you may see online and people will say, oh my gosh, I bought this property for $5,000 and I sold it for $25,000. And that's great, and they made a great return on that. But what they're not telling you and what they're miscalculating themselves is the true return they're making. Because if you take that $5,000 property and you add in $1,000 in closing cost and $1,000 in time and effort by your team and by contractors, and you pay a realtor by the end of it, and you pay closing cost on the other side of the sale, well, that $5,000 property just turned into a $10,000 property, and your return just got cut in half. And so many people don't calculate their returns properly. Now, whenever you're looking to buy a property, what we look for is we look for at least an 80% return. At least an 80% return. So if I am going to invest $1,000, I'm expecting that every year that investment is going to return me $800 after we calculate our fees correctly. Okay, the second big mistake that land investors, newbie land investors make is they expect to get top of market prices for their property. Now look, what we do in general, you got to understand as a land investor, someone who goes and buys off-market deals, brings them up to life, you are essentially a used car salesman, okay? And I like to use this analogy with people, but you're essentially a used car salesman. And let me ask you, do you think used car salesmen are getting top of market prices for their cars? No, they're used car salesmen. And what they provide is they provide the opportunity to buy a quality car quickly and cheaply. That's why you go to a used car dealership versus going to, Toyota or Lexus or whatever major dealership you're going to go to. As a land investor, you need to keep the used car dealership mentality. You're not trying to go out and buy properties and sell them at the top of market prices. That's just not what we do. Because in general, what our business model is as a whole is taking money, placing it in properties and getting it to turn quickly. With land, if you're listing it at the top of market prices, you miss the last part. It doesn't turn quickly. So as a land investor, your goal should be to be listing at below market prices. So for an example, if you go in and you see a property, there's some listings for $20,000, some for $30,000. Oftentimes new investors like to use that $30,000 $35,000, whatever the top benchmark they see as far as a similar property in the area. Well, my friends, after over 300 deals, I can tell you, you always need to be using bottom of market prices. You need to take the most similar type sale you can find and find the cheapest one. And that is oftentimes going to be the price that you're going to be competing with. Because you're not a realtor, you don't have the resources to go out and show people these properties. You're offering a quick and easy transaction at below market value. So going back to part one, right? If you're taking and expecting top of market prices, whenever you're buying your properties, you're going to be calculating your return incorrectly. You always need to be using the pricing, whatever you think the cheapest properties are on the market that are similar to yours, you need to be pricing yours at that price or just a little bit under it in order for you to A, calculate your return effectively, and B, be able to get a quick return on your money. Number three, and this one is a bit of a mouthful, but the third mistake I see that new land investors make is they do what I call a spray and pray approach, right? They go and they take a course or they learn a strategy online, and with very little research or foresight, they just send it out. They take a guess. And the truth is that's a great way to get started. I encourage everybody to just jump in and take action. But after you've begun your business, the third big mistake that I see people make is they don't plan their business based on the available capital that they have. Let's dive into that. All right, so hear me out. Some people that I work with have hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in land. They see the massive returns that we make, and they are very comfortable putting $100, $200, $300, even $1 million into buying properties and flipping them. Well, you on the other side of the camera may say, well, Clint, I don't even have $100,000. And that's great. Everybody has a different financial situation. In another one of my videos, I talk about how much money it takes to really get started in land investing. Make sure to check that out. But to summarize that, really I like people to have $5,000 to $10,000 before they step into this niche, okay? And the truth is, if you have $200,000 versus having $10,000 or $20,000, you should be deploying your business model completely differently, right? Somebody that has less money needs to be focused on making good connections, creative financing, and focusing on deals that fit their budgets. Somebody who has more money and is looking to make that churn faster, they need to be working with bigger properties. They need to learn how to target larger acreage. And even more importantly, they need to learn how to build an effective team so that they're using their time wisely. And so many people get started and they say, oh, I just feel like my business isn't growing. I just feel like I'm heading in the wrong direction. And oftentimes it's because of number three, because you're not planning your business based off the available capital that you have. So look, this is different for everybody. I can't sit here on the other side of this video camera and tell you exactly how to run your business, but let me give you a couple tips. If you're in the lower, if you're in the lower bracket or if you're in the upper bracket, pretty simply put. If you're someone that's starting, again, I want you to have $5,000 to $10,000. But really what you need to be focusing on is you need to be focusing on buying massive return properties with your available financing. And then you need to be spending the rest of your time focusing on making good partnerships and learning how to get bigger deals funded. This is the biggest mistake I see new land investors making, is they don't focus on how to use other people's money. Check out this video where I talk about using other people's money. But the biggest mistake I see is people not focusing on how to connect deals with money. Especially if you don't have a lot of money to work with, your number one skill in any real estate investing niche needs to be connecting the dots. And so your goal, if you're somebody that doesn't have the hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest, you need to be investing your money into the highest yielding deals, the highest returning deals, going back to number one. And then you need to be spending the rest of your time learning how to connect opportunities with funding. If you can do that, you're going to quickly step yourself up into the upper bracket. Now, if you do have more money to invest, pretty simply, you need to be focusing on bigger properties, things that have larger buy and sells, and you need to be focused on building an effective team. If you're starting this business, you already know how time intensive it can be. And so if you're spending your time on the phone, doing contracts, things like that, well, you're really spending your time on low dollar activities. And you really, really have to focus on how you build the team. All right, the last one, number 4, and I'm guilty of this as well. But the fourth biggest mistake I see new land investors making is getting emotional with your properties. You buy a property, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. The photos come back, the drone photos come in, and you think it's just gonna be the top of market prices, back to number 2, right? You can't get emotional about your properties. If you are looking at a property, you always wanna focus on 2 things. How much is it gonna be worth at the bottom of market prices, and what is my return gonna be? Put the pictures aside. These days, I try to not even look at pictures when I'm evaluating a deal. It is just data and numbers. But I'm guilty of this too. I've bought many properties that I said, oh, well, this one is so much different than everything else that's on the market. And the truth is, those properties are the ones that sit the longest and the ones that I have to discount the most. So look, I'll make this very simple for you. Don't get emotional about your properties. Stick to the data 100% of the times. Calculate your returns with the below market prices. Hey guys, if you found this video valuable, I would love if you would click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Also follow me on all the socials. It's clintturner.land. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the places. Hey, thanks for joining us. If you are interested in learning more about land investing, I hope you'll join our free Facebook group. I go live every month teaching new topics and how to get started in this business. We'll have the link in the description below. It's called Learn Land University. We'll see you there.